Clayton Byrd Goes Underground. This chapter is called The Sky is Crying, page 20. Miss Byrd and Clayton sat in the very front pew of the church across from cool Papa Byrd's long, polished oak coffin. Miss Byrd didn't cry, so Clayton didn't cry, even though sadness filled almost every inch of his being. No matter how badly he felt, he couldn't start crying. He didn't want anyone to see him cry and feel sorry for him. Most important, he had a plan, and he couldn't carry it out if his nose was full of snot and his throat was choked up. Clayton had slipped his blues harp in his pocket while he was getting dressed. Instead of reading a poem or a farewell letter like Omar had read at his grandfather's funeral, Clayton decided to say his farewell on a simple blues scale, in G. Blues in G was the first scale he learned and accompanied cool Papa on. It was the scale of the sleepy midnight jams. Clayton had practiced for a week. He knew what he'd say in his first 24 bars and how he'd say it. He didn't tell his mother about his planned farewell. He knew she wouldn't approve. Even worse, he knew his mother would forbid blues playing of any kind. He kept his blues harp in his jacket pocket and rubbed his fingers across the holes every now and again. Clayton and his mother sat in the pews meant for family on the right side of the church. Behind them sat Clayton's grand aunts and uncles, many second cousins, and a slew of relatives. On the left-hand side in the front row sat the bluesmen, all looking sharper than 7 sharps in the key of C. When Clayton had met the bluesmen a few years ago, he thought their middle names were On. Cool Papa Byrd had said, "This is Jack Rabbit Jones on keyboard, Big Mike on bass, and Hector Santos on percussion." His grandfather, of course, was Cool Papa Byrd on blues guitar. The bluesmen agreed that they could sure use a man on blues harp. From then on, Cool Papa Byrd taught Clayton to blow the harmonica out to make it shout, and to draw in his breath and to make it shudder or chug like a train. Behind the bluesmen sat 3 lovely ladies in hats. All carried hankies in their fat, dimpled hands. They outcried Miss Byrd and Clayton and all of Cool Papa Byrd's family seated on the right-hand side of the church. Behind the 3 lovely ladies sat Cool Papa Byrd's shipmates from the Navy, their gold buttons gleaming against their dark blue jackets, or as Cool Papa Byrd would have said, "Man, they were ship-shape." Behind the Navy men sat a few of Cool Papa Byrd's classmates from his school days, and even his old math teacher. Behind the mourners from school days past sat the throng of people who had heard and loved his electric blues guitar licks. And then behind them sat a few people who, by the looks of them, hoped sandwiches would be served later. Last, Mr. Miller, Clayton's father, entered the church. He strode down the aisle and filed into the front pew where the family sat. He kissed Clayton's mother on her cheek. A quick hello kiss. Hello with sorrow. He patted Clayton on the back and sat next to him. "You all right, son?" his father asked. "I'm cool," Clayton answered. "Clayton," Miss Byrd scolded, "don't forget where you are." She shook her head, short and curt. "You sound like your grandfather." And that made Clayton smile in his heart. Then the organist began to fill the church with organ sounds. It wasn't the music of the blues club, the honky-tonks, their secret Washington Square Park concerts, or their midnight jams. It was the music Miss Byrd instructed the organist to play. A heavenly tune, she'd tell the organist, although Miss Byrd didn't believe her father would go straight to heaven. He had made too many people cry, especially her mother, to go straight to heaven. Her father's soul had a long road to travel. The bluesmen had come ready to play. A send-off wouldn't be a party without the blues to ferry Cool Papa Byrd on his journey. They offered to play a tribute, but Miss Byrd thanked them kindly and firmly said, "No blues music of any kind." The bluesmen were not pleased, but kept their cool. So the organist played hymns, the preacher preached, the lovely ladies boo-hooed, and Clayton fiddled with the folded paper that told the story of Cool Papa Byrd's life, read by one of Cool Papa Byrd's brothers. Clayton hoped to hear funny stories about his grandfather as a kid, or as a young musician during his Mr. Louisiana Hot Licks days, or of his days at sea in the Navy. He hoped to hear about the cool papa he knew and how he got to be so cool. Instead, Uncle Clifton Byrd read the date that Clayton's grandfather had been born. He read that he had brothers and sisters who began to cry, that he had married and was joining his wife in heaven. Miss Byrd uttered a humph that Clayton, his father, and the preacher heard. Uncle Clifton read that he and his wife had 1 daughter, Clayton's mother, and 1 son, Clayton Byrd.